Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bihudah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to Mercy to Mankind, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. As a reminder, you know that in this series we are discussing the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his biography, how Islam started, and how do we see Islam to proceed, inshallah, till the Day of Judgment. Last time we met, we talked about so many great things, such as the Islam of Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, one of the lions of Islam, and the best and master of martyrs, as described by the Prophet ﷺ. We also promised that we should talk a little bit about Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph, who was one of the enemies of Islam. And Umar was the answer to our Prophet ﷺ's prayer when he said, "O Allah, guide Umar ibn al-Khattab to Islam, or Amr ibn Hisham to Islam." And Amr ibn Hisham was Abu Jahl, the worst enemy of Islam. And alhamdulillah, Allah answered his prayer.
Sheikh, does this nickname, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Abu Jahl by this name?
Abu Jahl's nickname was Abu Al-Hakeem, which means the father of wisdom. And usually Abu means the father of.
Yeah.
And in Islam and Arabia, generally speaking, people are called after their elder son. So if you have 5 sons and your oldest, for example, is Abdullah, you're usually called by Abu Abdullah. And Amr ibn Hisham used to be called Abu al-Hakam because of his status. And when he rejected Islam and became one of the enemies of Islam, he could not be by any means the father of wisdom.
Yeah.
He is the father of ignorance. And that is why he's called Abu Jahl. Jahl meaning ignorance.
Yes.
So Umar saw in his dreams once that he will convert to Islam. And he was so strong against Muslims, to the extent that once, just before a group of Muslims migrated to Abyssinia, to Habasha, he met a woman. Her name was Abdullah bint Abu Hathma. And he saw her packing and getting ready to leave. So he asked her, "Are you leaving, Abdullah?" She said, "Yes, we are leaving. You've tortured us. You kept on following us. And you've done so many bad things to us. We cannot worship Allah in your country. So at least we should go somewhere else to worship Allah freely." And she felt some softness in his voice when he said, "May Allah be with you." So when her husband Amr came back, she told him that Umar ibn Khattab said so and so and so and so. So he told her, do you think that Umar is going to revert to Islam? By Allah, his donkey will accept Islam before he does.
Oh.
It was to that extent.
Yes.
And this teaches us a lesson. Never, ever give up hope.
Yeah.
When someone talks about a non-Muslim leader or an enemy of Islam, you find people cursing him and saying that he's in hell and he does. Why? There's a very big possibility that he may change and revert to Islam. If you say this to anyone, they will tell you, impossible, no way. This was exactly the same words that were said when
Muhammad.
people thought that Umar would convert to Islam.
Yeah.
And he converted.
Mashallah.
There are stories about this and how he converted to Islam. One of these stories say that he was going to a special place, Dar al-Arqam ibn al-Arqam, a special house where the Muslims used to gather with the Prophet ﷺ. So he went there wearing his sword to go and kill the Prophet. On his way, he was met by one of the Muslims who was in hiding. He did not declare his Islam. So he told him, where are you headed to, Umar? He said, well, I'm going to this house of Al-Arqam to kill Muhammad and get it over with.
Yeah.
So the man was afraid and told him, why kill Muhammad? Why don't you go back to your own house? Your sister and your brother-in-law are Muslims. So he was furious.
Yeah.
And he went back to his sister's house, and the minute he opened the door, he found her husband, Sa'id ibn Zayd, ibn Amr ibn Nufayl, one of the 10 who are part of the 10 with the glad tidings of Jannah,
Yes.
reciting the Quran. So the minute he saw his cousin coming in, bursting into their house, he stood up, but Umar pushed him away, and the guy just fell and lost it. Umar was so strong. And when she stood up and started shouting at him, he smacked her on the face, and she fell crying with some blood coming out of her. And then he felt the gravity of what he has done by hitting a woman and by hitting his own sister.
Yes.
So he told her, what is this you're reading? Give it to me, let me see. She felt and sensed that something was about to change. So she told him, no, you cannot do this. You're a non-Muslim and you're impure. Go and wash and come. So he went and washed and came back, which meant that he was ready.
These are the steps of embracing Islam, accepting Islam. You have to take a total path? Or?
No, first of all, you have to embrace Islam, then you take a total bath.
Yeah.
But she asked him to do this in order for him to be able to read the Quran.
Yeah.
So she gave him the Quran, and he read it, and he was convinced. So he went out wearing the same sword, but with a different face altogether, with a different heart. And he went to Dar al-Arqam ibn al-Arqam, and he knocked the door. And the people inside went to look out, and they came terrified.
Yeah, Umar.
So, what's wrong? Umar.
Umar's coming.
They cannot even talk about it. It's Umar. He was so strong. It was beyond imagination.
Yeah.
But who was inside? Hamza was inside.
Oh.
So when he saw the fear on the people's faces, said, so what? Let him come in. If he wanted some harm, we will execute him with his own sword. If he wanted otherwise, maybe it's good for him.
He was a lion.
He doesn't
Hamza was a
fear
lion.
anything,
Yeah.
Hamza. And both of them were clash of the titans. Both of them were so strong. Umar went in. And immediately, as he went in, the Prophet ﷺ grabbed his clothes and said to him, Ibn al-Khattab, the son of al-Khattab, isn't it time yet? With a very aggressive voice. The Prophet wasn't afraid, because he was stronger than them all. Yet he was unarmed. And he knew that Allah has answered his call. So immediately Umar said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And the whole house burst into takbir. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And the whole of Mecca was trembling with that sound. And the people of Mecca knew that something bad happened to them.
Yeah.
And immediately, look at the influence of Iman in his heart. Immediately, after embracing Islam, and after people congratulated him on that, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, why are you staying in this house and not praying in the masjid? By Allah, let us come out in 2 rows, and no one would dare and say anything to us. And so they did. They went out in 2 rows, one led by Hamza, and the other was led by Umar. And they went to the masjid, and they prayed, and people knew.
Was it a demonstration?
It was not a demonstration, it's just flexing the muscles.
Yeah.
showing them who they really are. This is one story that was told about Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. Another story was, and that was before them going out in these 2 rows. After he embraced Islam, alhamdulillah, and accepted it, he went to a group of friends of his and told them, if I had something that I wanted to spread all over the city, who should I see? So they told them, well, you have Reuters or Associated Press. No, they didn't have those two. They had someone in particular, a man who was known to love and strive on gossip. So Umar went to him and told him, how are things, what's going on? By the way, I have reverted and I'm now a Muslim. And he left. This was early morning. And immediately the man raised his voice and said, Umar has become a sabi'. Umar has transformed and he abandoned the religion of his ancestors. And immediately the people in the masjid went over and they started fighting with Umar. Punching him, kicking him, whatever they could do. And he fought alone with all of these men for more than 4 hours until the sun was in the middle of the sky. And to his surprise and to theirs, after 4 hours, he was beaten in the sense that he was too tired. He sat down and he said, do whatever pleases you, because I am not going to go back to the religion that I was following. I am a Muslim. If you want to kill me, go ahead. Imagine for 4 hours you're fighting with people and they're unable to get to you. And the only thing that prevents you from continuing is that you're dead tired. If you look at those doing martial arts, after 5 to 10 minutes of kumite, of full contact, they are out of breath. It's difficult. Those who are boxing, after 40 minutes or 50 minutes, they are dead tired. They cannot walk. This man was doing it for 4 hours, and not against one man, against so many of them. So they decided that they would continue and to harm him, but there comes a man, a very honorable and respected man, and he told them, do you think that his tribe will let his blood go in vain? Don't you know that Bani Adi are one of the most respectable tribes around us? Let him go. He is under my custody and my protection. And this man was Al-As ibn Wa'il, who was one of the leaders of the tribes of the mushrikeen, of the pagans. We have a short break, and inshallah we'll come back.
Dear viewers, Hoda programs can be watched in the English section of the in-flight entertainment directory on board all Saudi airline flights, domestic and international. Sit back, relax and enjoy watching Hoda's entertaining and enlightening shows on your trip. Hoda wishes you a safe and successful journey. Hoda, a light in every home.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Indeed, Umar's Islam, may Allah be pleased with him, was a victory to all Muslims. Now they can declare their Islam, they can show the people how proud they are, because if anyone would have talked or insulted them or tried to harm them by any means, he would think twice, because there was Umar and there was Hamza who could always defend them. They, the Muslims, have been tortured. They have been insulted gravely, even with the presence of Umar. But now it was a little bit less than before.
Sheikh, see how the matters turned upside down. 2 days before Umar's Islam, he was a fierce enemy against Islam. He was torturing them. After his embracing Islam, he became the defender of Islam. They felt pleased and appreciated with his Islam. How Islam changed his character totally.
This is the magical power of Islam. It is a religion of nature. It is a religion of peace. Peace within. Peace with yourself, peace with the others, and peace with your Creator. And that is why it's called Islam, surrendering. It comes from the word salam, which is also the meaning of peace. It has a magical effect on people.
Yes.
And don't ask me, and don't take my word for it. Ask those who their children reverted to Islam. I know a lot of parents who say, though they are the Christians, still they say that Islam is a wonderful religion. Our children never paid any attention to us. They insulted us, and in some cases they even beat us. But after they converted to Islam, they have transformed drastically to new people. They seek our pleasure. They obey our instructions. They support us financially. They go out of their way just to see a smile on our faces. Indeed, Islam is a beautiful religion. So, what happened to Umar happened to everyone else. They felt the beauty of Islam. They felt the strength of Islam that transformed their life completely. And if you imagine the amount of torture they suffered,
Yeah.
yet they accepted that. But it was so huge, so great, that it was beyond any recognition. And they were not the first to be tortured. The people before them, the sons of Israel, the Jews, were also tortured, and maybe more. And in one hadith, Khabbab ibn al-Arat, may Allah be pleased with him, once, and he was among the very first to embrace Islam, once came to the Prophet ﷺ when the Prophet was sitting in the shade of Kaaba. And he told him, O Prophet of Allah, don't you see what's happening to us? Can't you call Allah, can't you pray to Allah to give us victory? And before I continue this hadith, don't you think that Allah is capable of granting them victory without them doing anything?
Allah is capable of doing anything because He is the creator
Sure,
of
yes.
the whole world.
Okay,
Yes,
then
definitely.
why?
There is a wisdom behind
It's a
that.
kind of testing.
There is a wisdom.
It's a kind of testing of their
The
believing.
entire existence, our entire existence is to be tested. If Allah wanted, He would transfer the whole earth, He would annihilate everyone on it, He would destroy it all, He would create other people. But Allah Azza wa Jal has created us to test us and to see if we qualify to go into paradise or go to hell. And that is why when Khabbab, may Allah be pleased with him, went to the Prophet ﷺ seeking his supplication so that Allah Azza wa Jal would relieve them from what they've been suffering, the Prophet ﷺ sat down and he told him that the people before you, they used to bring them and torture them to the extent that they would comb their back between the flesh and the bones with combs of metal. And in some cases, they would put the saw on the top of their heads and saw them into two. You know, splitting a person into two.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the amount of torture? No anesthetics, nothing. The Prophet says this would happen so that they would refute and reject their religion, and they would never do this. They would die. They would rather die than surrender or reject their religion and belief. The Prophet says, ﷺ, telling Khabbab, they were all being beaten up, they were all being tortured. He told him, by Allah, this religion will prevail. To the extent that a man would leave from Mecca to south of Yemen on his camel without the fear of anyone attacking him. He fears only Allah Azza wa Jal, and he fears the wolf, who's an animal, to come and attack his sheep. But no thieves, no burglars. He would feel secure because the people are all Muslims. And this, alhamdulillah, did take place.
Yes, yes.
So imagine the Muslims hearing this from the Prophet ﷺ, and everything, the odds are all against them. Yet the Prophet has had his trust in Allah.
Okay, why didn't the Prophet ﷺ make dua against his people, those who were rejecting him, trying to oppress him, his companions, persecuting Muslims, the slaves, the weak people? Why he didn't make any dua against them?
To find this answer to this question, you have to refer to the title of our series, Mercy to Mankind. The Prophet ﷺ did not want to annihilate his people. He could have. And Allah Azza wa Jal would have answered his prayer. But he was hoping that someday, one day down the line, they will revert to Islam. Or that their offsprings convert and accept Islam. And this is exactly what happened. All those who were enemies of Islam, there came a time where they reverted to Islam. One of them was Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was the main engine behind the defeat of the Muslims in the Battle of Uhud. And he was the leader of the pagans, of the riders. And yet this man himself reverted to Islam. Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, who was also the leader of the pagans after the death of Abu Jahl. And he was also...
Akrima also.
A what?
Akrima ibn Abi Jahl.
Well, Ikrima is a different story, but we're talking about Abu Sufyan, who was a leader. Ikrima was the son of Abu Jahl, and he was not a leader of his people, because he was of the second generation. I'm talking about Abu Sufyan, who was a leader of his people, reverted to Islam. Amr ibn al-As reverted to Islam. Suhail ibn Amr, the orator and one of their leaders, reverted to Islam, who did the treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Prophet ﷺ. Ikrima, and the list goes on and on and on. They all reverted and accepted Islam. Not only that, they became strong believers and carriers of the message of the Prophet ﷺ. Why was that? Simply because the Prophet ﷺ was not hasty. He did not raise his hands and say, "Oh Allah, destroy them all," though he could have. So this shows us that the amount of suffering the Muslims had in these early years. This took place about 6 years of the span of the da'wah. The secret 3 years and 3 or 4 more years. Quraysh, the pagans, were hoping that something might happen, but nothing happened. On the contrary, day by day, people would accept Islam. They would revert to Islam. And the pagans' main concern was that this movement will affect their financial interests, because they were relying on the pilgrimage. So if someone was abusing and attacking their idols and claiming that their idols are worthless, then they have a problem. Because people will not come for pilgrimage, which means that the income would go less and less and less. So they've increased the amount of punishment. They increased the amount of torture, to the extent that people could not stand this anymore. The Muslims were helpless and they had nowhere to go. So the Prophet ﷺ told them to get ready to move to another country. He asked them to go to Abyssinia, which is Al-Habasha,
Yes.
and he told them that this is a country with a very fair and just king, and he will take care of you. You'll be able to worship Allah without anybody coming to you.
This is the first migration?
This is the first migration. There were two. Yes.
Before speaking about the migration, as we learn from this biography and Sirat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is there a message can be to the Muslim of today and non-Muslims about the patience and bearing and torturing and suffering?
Well, alhamdulillah, we're not being tortured and we're not being asked to bear any physical pain. All what we're asked to do is to be tolerant. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims are impulsive. Without knowledge, they do bad things that affect their religion. Islam gives them the great and clear example. Be tolerant. Don't do something that might affect the da'wah. Look at the examples before you. People used to be tortured, used to be thrown in the heat of the sun and beaten, whipped. You name it, they had it. Some of them was killed at the side of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this did not deter them from pursuing the pleasure of Allah. So nowadays, you are not asked to bear and tolerate what they did, because you're not suffering in the same manner they had suffered.
But there are some troubles facing Muslims in non-Muslim countries.
These troubles come nowhere close to what they had suffered. So the most important thing for you is to be tolerant, to accept what's happening, and to be proactive and positive to whatever is happening to you. I'm afraid that this is all the time we have for today's program. So, inshallah, until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.